Let's dive in. Welcome to my virtual studio, worldwide headquarters of Dialogue Consulting Group. The future and how to prosper in it. I've capitalized IT intentionally. Yeah, that's a little bit of a signal on today's presentation. So let's get started. There's several places where I have more detail I want to offer you than I can do in this 55-minute time slot. So whenever you see that screen, it means there's a recording that we've made of this and added in more content, about 50% more content. So, want more on this topic? Go check the recording, get more on the topic. Now, the first thing we're going to talk about, since we're looking at the future, is exponentials. This is an exponential series in Excel, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32. You've probably seen this before, but here's a neat little party trick, because the next 10 years is all about exponentials. Over here, you'll note when you're formatting the axis in Microsoft Excel, there's a little checkbox. Make that a little bit bigger so you can read it. Check the box. You can change your scale from linear, which is what we use most of the time, to logarithmic. Check the box. Just one thing you need to know. If you're truly dealing with an exponential, as I've plotted here in column A, your line will be straight when plotted on a logarithmic scale. That's going to be very handy as we look at exponentials going forward. Now, it's not the first 5 doublings that is interesting. That was still 2 digits. We're up to 64. But you get to 10 doublings, you've experienced a 100,000% increase. Because we exist in linear world, linear time, linear revenue charts, our brains are not very familiar with exponentials. We tend to underestimate them. But in the end, they always get your attention. Now, we're dealing with this pandemic, COVID-19. And in the 20s, next decade forward, we're going to deal with lots of exponentials. So one of the good things is we're going to get more familiar with these. Now, most of the charts you see when people talk about the known cases of COVID, this is for the U.S. up through the end of March, are on a linear scale. But I want to show you the same data on a logarithmic scale. And remember, we're looking for straight lines. When we see straight lines, we know we've got exponentials. That tells us we need to pay attention. You will notice during the early part of March, we ran for 20 days at a 2-day doubling time. Nice, clean, straight line there. When the line is straight, doubling time is constant. We went through 10 doublings, 100,000% increase. Now, at the end of that period, as we zoom in, I want to show you how quickly, when you're looking at a logarithmic chart, you can see progress not otherwise evident. So around March 20th, we're starting to respond in this country. I know there was no national response overall, but that was our, I'll call that our average date. You see roughly, call that 7,000 known cases becomes 14,000 known cases in a 2-day period. And we've been running a straight line right into there. Now, just a day or two later, roughly 20 becomes roughly 40,000 cases, but that took 3 days. Instantly, you can see we are making progress dealing with this exponential. We're slowing it down. The curve is bending forward. Go another day forward in time, roughly 70,000 becomes roughly 140,000, but that time it took 4 days. This is what progress looks like. And in fact, by the time we got to June 9th, not that you know this if you're reading headlines and watching the linear charts, but we had made unbelievable progress in stretching this thing out. We started at a 2-day doubling time in mid to late March. Now we are at a 73-day doubling time. That's what progress looks like. So now you know the key metric as we talk about exponentials is doubling time. So let me show you an interesting way to look at COVID. And I'm going to bring you right home to my hometown, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Allegheny County. This is the metropolitan statistical area. Smoothing the chart a little bit for a 7-day moving average. And by the way, when I do these doubling time calculations, nominal testing skew, inverted scale. So what you want to be doing as time goes forward is moving down. And that's exactly what we were doing here in Allegheny County. We're rocking it. 180 days to double compared to 2. Well, we've declared victory. We flattened the curve. Let's all go back to our old behaviors. Well, when you go back to your old behaviors, collective humans, when we do this, the virus goes back to its... I didn't see this happen worse any place in the country. Look what happened over 3 weeks. Bars reopen, we go back out, we start ignoring our social distancing and masking rules, and we've just given up 3 months of progress. And now we got to go through the whole thing all over again. So we've wasted essentially 3 full months. And I'm not just talking about government investment, I'm talking about all the pain that businesses collectively took, the sacrifice that we made wasted, and then we get back to it again. And the curve the second time looks pretty much like the curve the first time. And so, doubling time is the key metric to pay attention to, whether we're talking COVID or any of the other exponentials we're going to cover today. Now, I have some thoughts for you. As we think about our businesses in this new environment, we need to redesign our businesses to achieve 3 things. And the reason these letters are now backwards is I'm inside your business looking out. So from the inside of the business, among our employees and our public contact points with our suppliers and customers, we need to, number 1, achieve virtually flawless social distancing. Now, if you can't do that with an actual 6-foot, 2-meter distance, another way to do it would be a plexiglass barrier between 2 people. Or if you can get your hands on an N95 or N100 NIOSH grade PPE technology kind of mask, hey, we're protected if we're both wearing those. And so there's lots of ways to go at it. This is rule number 1 with respect to the virus. Rule number 2 in redesigning our business, we need to eliminate virtually all potential surface transmission of this SARS-CoV-2 virus. 3 times as contagious as the modern flu, according to the CDC. And now most people don't get this from surfaces, but don't ignore them. They're still dangerous. Mostly it's propagated person to person through the air, but surfaces still merit our attention. And finally, we should account for employees' kids. A new requirement. Look, if you have an employee who is in a work from home mode, and you're going to see we're probably going to do work from home even after this thing is done, I don't know of any better productivity killer than a 6-year-old trying to get mom or dad's attention. And so maybe we start to expand the scope of our thinking just a little bit. Is there something that we could do for our employees who are at home, when they are at home, even if that's just part-time at home in the future, that helps them be more productive? Cubicle partitions, 2 monitors, and maybe for our most important employees, underwriting part of in-home childcare. These are questions that just in the self-interest of productivity in our business, we should at least ask. So, we know the rules of the virus. If we follow these rules, hey, we can stay safe and help keep the economy moving. It's not an either or. We can do both. Now, I want to show you a couple of other exponentials just to set the tone. We've been dealing with these for a long time in business, and specifically one you're familiar with has a nice snappy name, Moore's Law. Our processing power and storage capacity doubles roughly every 18 to 24 months, which means that a Cray Model 2, the world's most powerful supercomputer in 1985, compared to an Apple Watch 30 years later, and this is the relative size, so you can barely see the Apple Watch up there, Cray Model 2, the outboard radiator system to keep the thing cool. Yeah, resized to show you relative processing power, it would look more like this. The Apple Watch has twice the processing power, and this is the original one, Apple Watch 1 in 2015, 4 times the memory. Over here we're using 195 kilowatts of power consumption, hence the radiator cooling there, generating a lot of heat. The thing weighs in at 2.75 tons. Back on our Apple Watch, 1.97 ounces. That's the whole thing with the bezel. Let's get rid of the bezel, just pull out the chip there. That is about a gram. And we've reduced the price of this supercomputer, even as we've made it more powerful, by 140,000 times. That is what exponentials can do. We're going to see a whole bunch of these in business. Try putting that on your wrist, right? That is not going to work. But keep in mind this example as we look forward, because we're continuing to see an exponential acceleration of technology. We will see it for 10, 20, 30 years, the rest of our professional careers. That was Moore's Law. How about storage capacity? Bandwidth, both transmission speed and latency. We've now got this 5G coming online, cloud capabilities, nanotechnology, microbiology. We can edit human DNA to fix genetic diseases, among other things. We're also using CRISPR-Cas9 on one of our 4 vaccine strategies for COVID. Big data, pattern recognition, artificial intelligence, the Internet of Things, blockchain, Bitcoin and such, image recognition. And while it will not progress as fast from a doubling time perspective as some of the other exponentials, even energy will follow an exponential path with perhaps a doubling or halving time of the price, maybe 2 decades with per 50% reduction. But even in the future, energy is going to be far less expensive. Now, thinking about our businesses, to me, one of the leading thinkers about the future is named Peter Diamantis. We don't have time necessarily to watch videos and listen or read books all the time, but we have a lot of time to listen and learn. I'm talking like the drive time, the mowing the lawn time, the exercising time. I have listened to thousands of podcasts and certainly hundreds of audiobooks. I've not had time to read. And so, let me play you a short snippet. Listen to what Peter has to say. There's about 100 episodes of Exponential Wisdom, president of Singularity University out there in Silicon Valley. And we're about 15 minutes into episode 1. Consider his thoughts with respect to your business and the rate of change.
I mean, there's a finesse, right? It's over the last, I will call it decade, last 5 years, it's a real fundamental understanding that the only constant is change and the rate of change is increasing. And this is a really hard thing for people to realize. We all tend to think of what we have in our hands today, the technology in our cell phone, our digital cameras, our GPS, the software, as the end-all, be-all. This is like we've reached perfection. But the fact of the matter is, it's just a point in time. It's going to be 1,000 times better in a decade, 1,000,000 times better in 20 years, 1,000,000,000 times better in 30 years. So the only constant is change, and the rate of change is increasing. The second thing is that every company, every product, every service, every single one will become disrupted, will become obsoleted. So you either are going to disrupt yourself or someone else will.
So consider what he's saying there at the end of that clip. Every single company, every single product, every single service will become disrupted, will become obsoleted. Disrupt yourself or someone else will. This is no longer about doing business tomorrow like we did today, or even just slightly better than we did today. Ultimately, there will be major disruptions given the rate of change, and it'll be a lot more fun if you do it to yourself. Which brings us to our next topic, the future of work. I'm thinking about your employees, and maybe what we should say is the future of no work. Neat little video essay on YouTube. Humans are starting to look a lot like horses right before the Model T. A video essay on how robots are already taking jobs. I'm going to play a couple of short snippets. You can go watch the whole thing for homework. Let's just dive in to this video titled Humans Need Not Apply.
Every human used to have to hunt or gather to survive, but humans are smartly lazy, so we made tools to make our work easier. From sticks to plows to tractors, we've gone from everyone needing to make food to modern agriculture with almost no one needing to make food. And yet, we still have abundance. Of course, it's not just farming, it's everything. We've spent the last several thousand years building tools to reduce physical labor of all kinds. These are mechanical muscles, stronger, more reliable, and more tireless than human muscles ever could be. And that's a good thing. Replacing human labor with mechanical muscles frees people to specialize, and that leaves everyone better off, even those still doing physical labor. This is how economies grow and standards of living rise. Some people have specialized to be programmers and engineers whose job is to build mechanical minds. Just as mechanical muscles made human labor less in demand, so are mechanical minds making human brain labor less in demand. This is an economic revolution. You may think we've been here before, but we haven't. This time is different.
I think everybody on this Zoom session is probably a good old-fashioned capitalist. We understand the laws of supply and demand. So consider that. With more supply of cognitive abilities coming from the machines, it's making human brain labor less in demand. We may think we've been here before, but this time it's different. In the past, as machines started to substitute for muscle power, we shifted to jobs that use our minds. Once the machines can do jobs that compete with our minds, where do we go next? So let's keep going with the video.
And because their mechanical minds are capable of decision-making, they are out-competing humans for jobs in a way no pure mechanical muscle ever could. Imagine a pair of horses in the early 1900s talking about technology. One worries all these new mechanical muscles will make horses unnecessary. The other reminds him that everything so far has made their lives easier. Remember all that farm work? Remember running from coast to coast delivering mail? Remember riding into battle? All terrible. These new city jobs are pretty cushy, and with so many humans in the cities, there will be more jobs for horses than ever. Even if this car thingy takes off, he might say, there will be new jobs for horses we can't imagine. But you, dear viewer from beyond 2000, know what happened. There are still working horses, but nothing like before. The horse population peaked in 1915. From that point on, it was nothing but down. There isn't a rule of economics that says better technology makes more better jobs for horses. It sounds shockingly dumb to even say that out loud, but swap horses for humans and suddenly people think it sounds about right. As mechanical muscles pushed horses out of the economy, mechanical minds will do the same to humans. Not immediately, not everywhere, but in large enough numbers and soon enough that it's going to be a huge problem if we're not prepared, and we're not prepared. You, like the second horse, may look at the state of technology now and think it can't possibly replace your job, but technology gets better, cheaper, and faster at a rate biology can't match. Just as the car was the beginning of the end for the horse, so now does the car show us the shape of things to come. Self-driving cars aren't the future. They're here and they work. Self-driving cars have traveled hundreds of thousands of miles up and down the California coast and through cities, all without human intervention. The question is not if they'll replace cars, but how quickly. They don't need to be perfect, they just need to be better than us. Human drivers, by the way, kill 40,000 people a year with cars just in the United States. Given that self-driving cars don't blink, don't text while driving, don't get sleepy or stupid, it's easy to see them being better than humans because they already are.
Now, a couple of key thoughts. Does anyone want to make an argument that better technology always makes more better jobs for horses? Yeah, once the machines could compete with the muscle power that was the only thing they had to offer, they're gone. Peak population, 1915. Once the machines compete with humans and humans can no longer make an economic contribution that exceeds that of the cognitive machine, where do we go next? So better technology doesn't always make more better jobs for humans, even though it has to this point. This time it's different. And technology gets better, cheaper, faster, at a rate that biology can't match. So let's talk a little bit more about self-driving cars, and in one sense I consider this to be fake news. Now, its headline is not fake. Self-driving Uber car kills Arizona pedestrian. That happened. But the fact that they have put this prominently on the front page of newspapers all over the world, and in the case of the New York Times, they're specifically using this image of a pedestrian right in the crosswalk, middle of a morning, sunny day. What could possibly go wrong? Well, as these vehicles, these autonomous vehicles are traveling, they're in a data collection mode, about 1 gigabyte per second, and we can analyze that data after the fact. So I want to show you what happened, and as we watch this video, I won't play any audio, I won't show you the moment of impact, but consider as a human driver whether you would have avoided this accident yourself. So we can see an overhead shot, complicated roadway here. A lane is emerging from this vegetation. Oh, it is 10 o'clock at night. You can see one street light there, but not a well-lit space. The self-driving Uber is actually traveling about 5 miles an hour under the speed limit. And here we go. And as soon as I can see a lane, I'll start counting out our 2-second reaction time for us humans. We'll see how we do. So here is the video, what actually happened. One Mississippi. Yeah, no human would have avoided that accident. But let's keep going further. And so, worldwide news, everybody reads the headline, self-driving Uber car kills Arizona pedestrian. Did you read this headline? I'm guessing not. Uber driver strikes and kills crossing guard with car. Or how about this one? Uber driver arrested after fatally hitting a man in crosswalk. Woman dies after being struck by Uber drivers. Humans are amazingly bad drivers. 7-year-old San Francisco girl struck and killed by Uber driver. You want another dozen? How about another 100? I can do this all day. Now, we didn't see those headlines, but we put it together on this scale. This is how Uber sees the world. Everything in blue is static, reported in by maybe some other vehicle or recorded by this vehicle on a previous pass. Everything in orange is dynamic, happening live, the pedestrians and the other traffic. And all that data from the accident goes back to the Uber engineers. Now, only two possible problems. Number one, did we fail to see her with the imaging system? We now know that answer is no. The imaging system picked her up 6 seconds ahead of time. Plenty of time to react, even for a human. Did the software fail to process it properly? Yes. Okay, engineers, let's fix that bug. And they did. And so if tomorrow at 10 p.m. a new lane crosses that same exact road, same exact situation, no accident. And yet the humans go on doing what the humans do. So this technology is already better than human drivers. Don't underestimate it because you read an article on the front page of your local newspaper. Like many technologies, it's progressing exponentially. This is just one of the companies involved in autonomous vehicle research, Waymo. That's part of what we used to call Google, what we now call Alphabet. And notice it took them 6 years to cover the first 1,000,000 miles. And then 1.5 years to cover the next 1,000,000 miles of real-world driving experience. Next 1,000,000, 0.75. By the summer of 2018, they're knocking out 1,000,000 miles a month and cross 10 million cumulatively. Now they're talking about 10 million units. Or if we're talking about their simulations, which they also run, we're talking about 10 billion units. Technology improves at a rate that biology cannot match. And so you will see in relatively short order 1,000,000 people dying per year right now on the roadways. Globally, 40,000 in the US. That number is going to come down, 100,000. And then it will be 10,000. And someday, not too far in the future, deaths by auto will be relatively infrequent, and we will wonder why we ever let humans drive. I'm not saying the technology is ever perfect. Thank you, Boeing, for demonstrating that with your 737-800 MAX, but even that software has now been fixed. And if you think about commercial aviation for a second, the two Boeing accidents that we saw due to their MCAS system, their software failure, were outside the US. Look in the US, where for decades software has essentially been flying planes other than very brief periods of time. We have experienced in the United States in the last decade exactly 1 death in commercial aviation. That's where we're going with these autonomous vehicles. And any politician that wants to try to slow this down, what you're essentially doing is suggesting you're not on the side of 1,000 deaths, you're on the side of 1,000,000 deaths. And that seems like a difficult place to stand. But this opens up new questions. The percent of employment from driving jobs. Do you realize driving something is the #1 job for men in this country? In some states, it's up to 5%. Those jobs are gone. And the enemy, frankly, is not immigration. It's not offshoring or outsourcing. It's automation. That is the real job killer. And so now you start to see people talking about, this is a TED Talk by Yuval Noah Harari, The Rise of the Useless Class. I think that's a little harsh. So I want to modify his title to say The Rise of the Economically Useless Class. But just because you can't make an economic contribution anymore, hey, how about a social contribution? That's valuable to humanity. So maybe we're going to have to change what we compensate for. Now, I want to suggest a process for working this that's going to give you better vision of what's ahead. If you have better vision, you can make better business decisions, better investments, better resource allocations. So here is the simple process, and I'm going to suggest that you do this with your team as a first step after today. Maybe on a Friday afternoon, not a bad time to do it, so wait for the right Friday. You can do it on Zoom or you can do it socially distanced, outdoors. I call it the Vision Innovation Exercise. Here's how it works, 3 steps. Number 1, pick the date of interest. And so maybe your date of interest is, say, July 1 of 2021. I'm going to show you an example here. We're going to go all the way 5 years in the future in a minute, but whatever date is of interest to your business, and with your team, brainstorm things that might happen by that point in time. Not being too judgmental, get your brainstorm list. And then, with that list in hand, look at that list and decide what are the 2 or 3 things that would be the biggest impact on your business. Positive or negative, maybe because they're the highest probability or just the most significant. And then for each of those, one step at a time, move on to number 2. Assume that it is that date now, and that thing has happened. Okay, so everybody got it? Is that date? We just time traveled, that thing has happened. Explore the implications. If you have a diverse and free-flowing team, you will be amazed how people's ideas feed off of each other. And then you start to see the future opportunities and the future threats, and you can choose which to pursue. 3 relatively straightforward steps. So let me show you how it works with a real scenario. This is going to happen. I don't know if I'm exactly right about the date, but let's say it's 2025, and these autonomous vehicles, they're everywhere. Remember that COVID thing we had 5 years ago? Yeah, great, we got that vaccine, and it sort of sucks you got to get an annual booster, but at least COVID is behind us. 5 years. Now, these autonomous vehicles are everywhere. What are the implications? And let people start thinking about it and sharing with the team and feeding off of each other. Let me just give you a couple here to get you started. If I can schedule what I want, when I want, where I want, why would I own a vehicle? Vehicle ownership is expensive and inflexible. I'm just going to schedule it, which means, what about gas stations? What about the local car wash? What about auto parts stores if these things are fleet owned? What about automobile insurance for individuals? Think about this. State Farm, Progressive, Geico, they get a lot of their revenues from personal automobile insurance, probably their most profitable line. How do you reconcile your cost structure if you're them to a world where you're no longer these are self-insured fleets? Now, maybe no one here is part of one of those companies, but those companies are going to have to reconcile their cost structures, and that pain is going to flow backwards. Here's another example. When we own automobiles, we're all sitting here watching Zoom. Everybody's vehicle is parked, presumably. 2 to 4% utilization. Is it beyond belief to think that maybe we'll run these things at 20% utilization? But if we're getting, say, 5 times better utilization, do we need perhaps 1/5 as many vehicles? Yeah. Now what happens to Detroit when Ford and GM, or Japan with Toyota, or Germany with VW has to reconcile their cost structure to producing 1/5 as many vehicles as today? That pain is going to flow outwards. And so we do this kind of visioning to try to understand how does that impact our part of the ecosystem. One last thing for you to think about. I was walking by a dealership in San Francisco. This is everything it takes to make a Tesla go. Now, if we have fleet owners for these rideshare vehicles, they're going to have some specialist in Excel. There's your front motor. Notice there's no fluids, right? We don't have radiators. We don't have transmissions in these things. 1% the number of parts. There's the batteries built into the chassis, nice low center of gravity, dual motor for redundancy. If one fails, you keep going until you get service. So that Excel specialist at the fleet owner comes running to the boss one day and says, "Boss, check out my Excel spreadsheet. These things are 30 to 40% more efficient than an ICE vehicle, internal combustion engine vehicle, because they don't radiate a lot of waste heat. And they actually recapture energy in braking. And because they have so few parts, look at how low the service costs are, and the usable life, probably 2 to 4 times greater than an ICE vehicle, maybe 500,000 to 1 million miles. And so you will see in parallel, even though I didn't stipulate as part of my scenario, electrification. We don't need any help from the government. This is going to happen because of economics. But again, that has implications. And so you start to see as you go deeper, and if you watch the recording, you'll get another 12 examples of implications coming down, but you start to see new opportunities. Hey, who's going to clean these things so that they're sterile between passengers, or back to maybe the owner who checked it into the fleet at the end of the day? We got all sorts of new business opportunities, and you can choose which to pursue. So after today, I'm going to suggest the process. Whether you like my scenario or not the issue. Pick your own scenario. So you start by choosing the date and brainstorming, then put as many details as you can, and then execute the process. Assume it's that date, that thing has happened, and see the new opportunities for your team to pursue the vision innovation exercise. Great next step after today's session. Now, you can get a lot more on that if you go to the recording. A world without work. We're displacing humans that have until now been able to make an economic contribution with their cognitive capabilities. This is an article that appeared in the Atlantic Monthly. For centuries, experts have predicted that machines would make workers obsolete. That moment may finally be arriving. Could that be a good thing? Technologists observe that the capabilities of machines, which are already formidable, continue to expand exponentially, while our own capabilities remain the same. Is any job truly safe? In 2013, so 7 years ago, Oxford University researchers forecast that in 2 decades, 2033, perhaps half of all U.S. jobs are gone and not replaced. Technology doesn't always make more better jobs for horses. These are not the traditional blue-collar jobs that you're thinking of. Jobs that automation displaces are white-collar jobs too. And so look at this list. You've got things like tax preparers, 99% chance those jobs are gone. Insurance underwriters, math technicians, title examiners. Yeah, not just blue collar, but white collar. And so, well, we're not quite ready. But the question is for your business, and the opportunity for your business is this. What happens when a human cannot make an economically valuable contribution? It's just not as accurate, not as productive, not as cheap, not as fast. Well, we move to automation, and our productivity goes up as our operations move to 24/7, and our costs go down. And so we businesses will collectively produce, and this is good news, a level of abundance for humanity like the planet has never seen, at a price point low like we've never had before. And so this is a good thing. What I would suggest for your business is this. You don't have to be the innovator. Innovators often fail. And so I would suggest a really good strategy is being a fast follower. You know which company demonstrates this really well? Microsoft. Last I looked, second most valuable company in North America. They don't innovate. They watch for important developments. They didn't invent spreadsheets, right? That was VisiCalc and Lotus 123, and then they made Excel. They make a multi-decade commitment to product improvement. And today, Excel is the second most popular app in the entire world. Another copy called Word is the leader. Now, fast followers usually succeed because others have proven the path. So be a fast follower. Be among the earliest companies in your industry to exploit proven benefits of exponentials as they come along. And in fact, don't just watch your industry and your competitors. Watch a little bit outside. What are your suppliers doing? What are comparable industries doing? And then be that fast follower. That's a really good business strategy. Now, coming back close to home again, let me share with you an example of something happening right in my family. My son, Mike, 29 years old. Actually, whoa, he's 30 today. Okay, the big 3-0. We're going to have a party later. 30 years old. He is one of the world experts in Google advertising. He's been doing this since he got out of college, like way back when, almost a decade of experience. And this hasn't been around that long, so he's one of the world experts. Google introduces smart campaigns for small businesses, the first new solution to launch under the Google Ads brand. AI, or what we might call data-driven, artificial intelligence, data-driven customer acquisition. So here's how it works with the new Google Ads system. You as the business have to say what you want. So you tell them your budget, your target location, zip code level if you like, languages, Spanish, French, English, you choose, and your goals. Do you want web visitors? Do you want phone calls? Do you want people navigating to your location? You set those things. And then their AI cuts in, and it does a whole bunch of stuff. First of all, it creates the ads for you, but more importantly, it selects images, and it can watch which image works best, not just overall, but at 2 o'clock on a Tuesday after a 3-day holiday weekend. Mike, my son, can never pay attention to that level of detail. It makes the landing pages for you. It optimizes the pay-per-click bidding. I mean, Mike's pretty good at it, but optimized. And then Google's AI measures and refines and reports. And get their pitch. Pretty simple. Hey, you like your guy Mike? That guy Mike Nelsen? Yeah, he's pretty good at what he does. Leave him with half your budget. And then let our AI run the other half. And let's just see what happens. Yeah, let's just see what happens. Mike is the world expert and he's about to lose his job to artificial intelligence. And so here's the thing that's going on in the U.S. economy. And we have not had an open conversation about this. The old social contract was you have a learning period in your life, the early part of your life, do the best you can, get your whatever level of degree you can get, and then you can do for the rest of your life and hopefully retire and have a nice, happy sail into the sunset. That's not the new social contract in a world of accelerating change. You now have to be prepared to learn and then do, be obsoleted, learn, do, do. That's a new social contract, and we haven't had really an open conversation about that nationally, and so a lot of people are mad because they're clinging to the old social contract. Sorry, it's gone. Automation is the problem, and you have to be a continuous learner if you want a position in the economy going forward. A lot more on that topic if you check the recording. Now, the future of marketing. I want to show you one really important thing. Hey, this could be a several month-long topic in its own right, but one neat little experiment that points the way to the next 10 years. This guy, Rand Fishkin, posted on Twitter a while back, hey, you have 20 seconds, love your help testing this. About 500 people responded. Now, what's important about what you're going to see is that Google doesn't tell us how their algorithms work. Heck, I don't think they know because so much of it is AI-driven these days. But this experiment reveals, and that provides some guidance to us. Every day, half of the internet traffic starts with a search. I want my fair share. So how do we play the game? Now, do not try what Rand Fishkin asked these people to do. Google might declare the death penalty. I'm not suggesting you do this, but look at what we can learn from his clever little experiment. He asked people to go to Google and type 3 words. Best grilled steak. And then get a search results page. And the first search result very likely will be Bobby Flay's Food Network. Click that, but don't stay on the Food Network website. Come right back here. So you're going to click and return. And then you're going to go down and find the Serious Eats Food Lab site. Click that and stay on their site. Guess what happened? Google's AI is watching every single human interaction with every single click, every single different phrase. And so 70 minutes later, this is what the search results page looks like. Google defines this as a short click, and this is a long click. And it is, in a sense, a form of human voting. And so Google's AI has learned, for whatever reason, it doesn't care. It can't tell you why it does these things. But when humans type best grilled steak, they seem to think this is good content, and that's not so good content, and that drives the organic rankings. And so here is your content, your marketing content for the next decade. It's very beautiful. Doesn't matter if you like it. And it's not even that Google has some kind of objective measure of what makes good content or not. No, there's your target audience. He or she, that is the person that gets to decide. Do they devote their attention to you? You win. They don't devote their attention to you and your content, you lose. Now the thing is, nobody cares about you. Sorry to be harsh, I'm into truth over harmony, but nobody cares about your business. What are his problems? What is his pain? Could you possibly take an educational strategy to helping him resolve that? And so, the future of marketing is really two things. Provide value to your audience. It's not talking about your features and products, and so your marketing person is to provide value to the audience and prove it. Let the numbers dictate the strategy. So you run experiments. If they like it, you do more. If they don't like it, you do less. And here's the thing. So many people who went into marketing because they didn't like numbers. Hey, I'm an engineer. If you like numbers, be an engineer or any of those STEM careers, science, technology, engineering, math, accounting, finance. We got tons of jobs for numbers people, at least at the moment. And so the non-numbers people went into marketing. Well, guess what? The job changed, and so not everyone in marketing is well suited for the dynamics of the job. It's all about measure, prove, be data-driven. That's the reality. And we have to create content now that our audience values, that they'll engage with. Okay, let's talk a little bit about sales. With this pandemic, we had to move, many of us, from doing sales in person with our team out there. Maybe you sell business to business. 100% in person became 0% in person. Now, as things are coming back, here's the question you got to think about. We're down here at 0. That's probably not the ideal place, so we're going to pull this back a little bit, but all the way to 100, or maybe do we stop a little bit? Is the optimum at either extreme? And my thought is probably not. And whatever could be recaptured here by not returning to 100% in person, that's productivity, more sales calls. That's cost savings, reduced travel costs. But maybe you didn't think about this. Is there actually a more effective way? One of the interesting things that's happened because of the pandemic is we've all become a lot more comfortable with technology. And so, clean sheet of paper. There's the old process. Your salesperson with your prospect. Now we pull it apart. Everybody's a little bit more comfortable with Zoom. But because it's not like an expensive or time-consuming thing to get to customer site anymore, why don't we bring our product specialist on the sales call, right? It's just checking in on Zoom for whatever the length of that call is. And maybe the customer wants to be running the numbers as we go, so they're going to bring in their CFO. So we're going to bring in our CFO. Just one more person on Zoom for a little bit. And of course, they've got their gatekeepers, their blockers. IT is typically a blocker. IT cannot say yes. They can say no. Let's get them right on board. That is a better process. Less cost, more productive, better results. Now, I got this one from a CEO in North Carolina one day. After their meetings, whether it's with a prospect or a customer, they then, once they're done with their formal business, they set it up so it can be around lunchtime. We DoorDash everybody some tacos or whatever you like. And so now all their people have tacos and all our people have tacos, and we're done with business and we're just talking. This is what struck me about what that CEO said. We are having, via Zoom, the most intimate conversations we have ever had with our customers and prospects. Maybe a better way, at least ask the question. Now, one of the things that might help you is exactly the technology I'm using right here, right now to run this Zoom session. And it's free. You gotta love the price. It's called the Open Broadcast Software Studio, or OBS Studio for short. And this is the user interface I'm using to control. Right there that says sources. I can combine multiple video streams on the fly and then send it in as a virtual video cam to Zoom, Teams, GoToMeeting, you name it. And so, source number 1, layer number 1, I am using video capture from the same exact technology I had before the pandemic, my MacBook Pro with a webcam. The integrated webcam's getting my image minus the background. Layer number 3, that conference room over there, not really there. That's a virtual background. And so that's my background layer. And then layer number 2, the display capture, the presentation, the slides you're seeing, yeah, they're coming also right from the Mac, running PowerPoint or Keynote. And I could show any other app, anything in a browser, anything on that computer, and I can have more than these 3 layers, all put together on the fly right into Zoom. And so how about a sales call with your product specialist, but also some videos of some customer testimonials, or a plant tour, a product demonstration. Better way. We've moved down the technology curve faster than we were going to without the pandemic. Let's make use of that in business to be stronger on the other side. And so there's the presentation. Now, a few other thoughts about long-term impacts here, right? Every event that impacts humans, we learn and then things change. And so as I look at the long-term impacts of COVID, here's a thought. We have accelerated our technology adoption. Who would have thought we'd be doing this via Zoom? Oh, and better too, because I can record it and then add a whole bunch more content, which you can review and get even more good stuff after our meeting. Hey, cool. We would never have imagined that 6 months ago. But now we've got it. We've all adopted it. Okay, so who is the big winner? Well, good news is it's North America. US, Mexico, Canada, probably in that order, because what we learned as businesses is it's a bad idea to concentrate our supply chain way far away in one place. So we're going to bring some of that home. And China's going to be the loser from that. But we don't want to pay anymore. And so this is going to be another accelerating function on adoption. Because we're bringing it back to North America, we're going to invest sooner than we would have in artificial intelligence, automation, robotics, big data. Yeah. We're also seeing reduced office centricity. We realized when we had to go into this work from home mode, hey, this is not necessarily a bad thing for everybody. Now, what I'm talking about is the 40% of the U.S. workforce that we might generally call knowledge workers that can work from home. I'm not talking about the 60 that can't. Your critical people, the in-person people. I'm talking about the 40 now. You're seeing stuff like this, headlines. Twitter's permanent remote work policy now extended to Square. Shopify permanently moves work from home model. Get a comfortable chair, says NPR. Permanent work from home is coming. In fact, here's why. This is one of the foremost researchers in the world, the guy from Stanford, my alma mater. His name is Nicholas Bloom, and he's been studying this for a long time, and here's what he says. Maybe a year from now, firms will say, you can come back into the office, but how about 2 or 3 days a week and spend the other couple of days working at home? Why? Well, they studied productivity before COVID. We found amazingly that the work from home employees were 13% more productive. That's like almost a day per week. When they commute less, they work more. Productivity. Fewer random interruptions. More productivity. That's a win. Employees are happier. Quit rates dropped by 50%. That's a huge cost savings in terms of preserving institutional knowledge for your business, not having to recruit, the time and the cost that goes into that. And so companies are actually saving money. Real estate costs. Employees are saving money. Commuting. And so let's look at, as we get to the other side of this, temporarily inside we got to socially distance. Maybe temporarily we need a little bit more room, or a little bit suboptimal, they're at home too much of the time. But once we're getting through this, really, again, where is the optimal point? Probably not at either extreme. So, if I work from home, a question is where to live. My other son, the younger one, James, he works in downtown San Francisco, right next to Twitter's headquarters, as an investment banker. And he's up on the 31st floor of a 2-bedroom apartment. There's 3 of them trying to manage the cost of outrageously expensive real estate. As soon as this thing hit and he realized his firm is in work from home mode until sometime in 2021, why stay in San Francisco? And so in his case, at least for now, he's up there, 1 floor above me, living at home, rent-free, free food. But a lot of people are starting to ask the question, do I really want to live where I live if I can work from home? I can live anywhere. So work from home, where to live? Why not here? Now, I'm going to suggest we got to get the word out one way or the other, and probably the best way to do this is through that word of mouth kind of recommendation and review. We could talk all day long about the impact of reviews in this world. Who in this area, Colorado Springs or whatever you want to define this area as, fits the demographic that we're aiming for? The tech workers, the young millennials. By the way, the millennials not so young anymore, 38 and under. Who is the current resident? How do we get them to start to talk to their peers? I don't know. We should start having this conversation because this looks pretty attractive from a cost perspective if I can still draw my San Francisco salary. COVID impacts on commercial real estate. And these are just some thoughts hitting the wave tops for you, but it's not going to be the same on the other side. Near term, yeah, maybe we need a little bit more space, but long term, I think we're going to need less space because not only are we doing work from home for some percentage of our employees some percentage of the time, but that big conference room we used to pay for because we had a weekly team meeting to get everybody crammed in there, why don't we do that 3 times out of 4, 3 weeks out of 4 via Zoom? Pretty good technology. And then the 1 time out of 4 where we want to be together, we're not going to pay for a conference room for a month for that. We'll go find a local co-working space, WeWork or whatever, and we'll pay for 2 hours. And so I think we're looking long-term at less space. With respect to travel, when we feel safe, hey, we have that wanderlust as humans. We will go back to leisure travel, but not business travel. There is too much productivity gain, too much cost savings in not returning to previous levels. The airlines aren't coming all the way back. This is their most profitable segment, by the way, that is not coming all the way back. Hotels, rental cars. Think about that. How does that impact your business? Now, 2 quick videos in closing just to really get your mind thinking about what's coming next. The future of, I don't even know what to call this. New York Times is now delivering news in a different way. It runs on your iPhone, but not quite like what you're going to see here in my demonstration, because I can only show it to you 2-dimensionally. But for $4, you already own the supercomputer. You get this nice little cardboard thing. This is a Google standard. See the lenses and everything? All I do is I take my phone with a split screen mode. Remember the old Viewmasters? You just pop that in there, close the thing up, and then look through it. And I've got full motion 3D. Now I'll show you what it looks like 2D. The accelerometers in my phone, as I'm moving my head around, I can go left, I can go right, I can look up over top. This technology is coming. We've already paid for the processing power. Now all we need is the headsets. Or wait a second, do we even need the headsets? Remember that Cray Model 2 that became an Apple Watch? Well, one of my friends just got tens of millions of dollars in funding for his company called Mojo Vision. You know what they're trying to do? They're trying to take everything I'm holding right here and put it into a contact lens. I'm talking about the accelerometers, the processors, the screens, the batteries. And you probably think that's impossible were it not for the example of the Cray Model 2 earlier. And so you might be climbing your local mountain heading towards the summit, but you now see an augmented reality view of the world right in front of you. It's that lens broadcasting. But now we can do 3D virtual presence without putting on some stupid looking piece of cardboard. Do we even need screens anymore? What if the screens are right in our eyes? And so this technology, which is frankly being paid for by all the video gamers, Microsoft with their HoloLens and Facebook with their Oculus, going to cross over into business and make new things possible. But where could you go with that? Check this out.
You're a neuroscience company, and you're working to build basically an interface to the brain.
Yeah. Electrode to neuron interface at a micro level.
Okay, what is that? Like, I'm gonna have like a plug in my head that's gonna fit into a hard drive? Like, or how does that work?
Yeah. A chip and a bunch of tiny wires.
This would be implanted surgically. And it would do what? Could you input? Could you download Jim?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
What
The long-term aspiration for Neuralink would be to achieve a symbiosis with artificial intelligence, and to achieve a sort of democratization of intelligence, such that it is not monopolistically held in a purely digital form by governments and large corporations.
Basically, an effort for man to merge with machine in
Yes.
a healthy way.
Yes.
To beat machines, you basically have to merge with machines.
Most likely, yes. Essentially, how do we ensure that the future constitutes the sum of the will of humanity? And so if we have billions of people with a high bandwidth link to the AI extension of themselves, it would actually make everyone hyper smart.
So that's what Elon Musk is up to now. The guy who brought you Tesla, SpaceX, Solar City, is now working on connecting microprocessors to the brain. And again, personal example, my niece Ashley, she's 20. She had a microprocessor connected to her brain about a year ago to about 20 different neurons, fully implanted. It's called a cochlear implant to restore hearing in her deaf left ear. But once you're thinking about that, why not microprocessor to your eyes? Why not microprocessor for an internet connection to the cloud? And so this isn't exactly way out there. It's already starting to happen. I leave you with a closing thought. It comes from our friend Peter Senge, an old book, but a goodie, The Fifth Discipline. The only sustainable competitive advantage that we have in our organizations, in our businesses, is the ability to learn faster than the competition. Patents expire, marketing message gets surpassed, your unique selling proposition, USP, loses its uniqueness. the only thing we've got, because all products and services commoditize with time, the only thing we've got is the ability to learn faster. This is the path forward. That's the future and how to prosper in it. All right, looking at the clock, we've got some time for Q&A. So what's on your mind?